Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May Consulting webinar. It couldn't be easier. Approve Laserfiche tasks from your email. My name is Michael Mathis, and I am the Solutions Director at CDI, and I will be your presenter for today's webinar. If you have questions at any time during today's webinar, please post them in the questions box at any time. We will be monitoring the questions and we'll have time for questions at the end of the webinar. If you are running into any technical difficulties, please raise your hand and we will be able to assist you. Some tips for success for today's webinar. Take good notes and screenshots. I find it helpful to track how far along into the webinar we are. That way you're able to kind of match up in your notes to the recording after the webinar. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We love to answer all of your questions. We will have time at the end of the webinar. And if we do run out of time, we will get to any additional questions through email afterwards. Please complete the survey after the webinar today. We love hearing your feedback and we love getting ideas for new topics for future webinars. And remember that this webinar will be recorded and available on the CDI YouTube page, usually within a few days of the webinar. It couldn't be easier. Approve Laserfiche tasks from your email. Intended audience for today's webinar are Laserfiche power users and Laserfiche end users. If you're neither a power user nor an end user, please stay in our webinar as there will be plenty of valuable information for everyone. And this webinar is applicable both to Laserfiche self-hosted environments and Laserfiche cloud environments. During our webinar today, we're going to review direct approval to approve forms tasks directly from your email inbox. We'll look at using the new Laserfiche Forms email buttons for approval. We'll look into assigning tasks to users or teams. We'll investigate adding emails into Laserfiche using AutoFile. And finally, we will go through a live demonstration of everything we've covered during our webinar. Direct approval in Laserfiche Forms allows for performing approval tasks without opening the actual forms task. We can easily approve or reject tasks from our forms inbox, and we can perform bulk approvals on multiple tasks that are assigned to us. We can perform these same approvals from our email inbox by either using the action buttons available in the email or by replying directly to the email with the desired action and optionally some comments to include in the form's action history. Enabling direct approval in your existing Laserfiche Forms process is very easy. First, we'll configure our action buttons, and these are going to be configured by default when we have our approval process configured in Laserfiche Forms with multiple outflows. We can customize the button CSS class in Laserfiche Cloud, and we can also customize our button labels. To enable direct approval, all we need to do is click on our toggle next to direct approval to slide it over to the right and turn it green. This will then enable direct approval on this approval step in Laserfiche Forms. Caution, warning, direct approval bypasses all forms inputs, including required fields. Do not enable direct approval on forms requiring user input. Otherwise, you will have a bad time later in your process when you are trying to use those values that you expect to be filled in. First, we'll look at approving our tasks from our forms inbox. So here my screenshot at the bottom shows 4 of my tasks in my forms inbox waiting for approval. I can select one task to view the direct approval buttons of approve or reject. If I select multiple tasks in my inbox, I'm able to approve or reject all of those selected tasks at once. Next, we can also approve our tasks through our through our email inbox. In self-hosted, we're able to directly reply to the email that is sent from Laserfiche Forms with the appropriate action, as well as comments, optionally up to a maximum of 2,000 characters. With both self-hosted and cloud, we are able to approve approve forms tasks through email using the action buttons. Replying to emails in self-hosted does require a little bit of additional configuration, and we will review that further during the live demonstration portion of today's webinar. Next are task assignments. So not only can we approve or reject tasks, we can also assign tasks. Under the Assign To area, we can assign tasks to a team based on a variable, or to a specific user. When we assign to a team, we're able to use round-robin task distribution. What this will do is assign that task to a team member based on who hasn't received a task recently. When assigning to team or a team based on variable, we can also configure a filter, and this will allow us to select team members out of our team by role, by username, or by many other options. This will use a JavaScript definition, and the Laserfiche Forms help documentation contains a lot of very helpful, very valuable information that we will be reviewing during our webinar. Email autofiling. We are able to automatically send emails to the Laserfiche repository from Outlook using the Laserfiche ribbon inside of our Outlook program. We have many actions available, such as saving to Laserfiche, saving to our default folder, or we can save only the attachments to Laserfiche. Pre-populating metadata is made easy by configuring the email import options within our Laserfiche repository. This will automatically pre-populate metadata, both the template and field values, based on information from the email message, such as the sender name, recipients, and email subject. We have the ability to choose how we're going to handle our attachments. So we can leave the message or leave the attachment in the message. We can also file that attachment as a separate document. If we uncheck the leave in message box, the attachment will be removed from the email message and will not be stored to the Laserfiche repository. Finally, we can use a Laserfiche autofile workflow to automatically file those documents to the correct location in our Laserfiche repository. We have done webinars previously on autofiling. If you would like to review those webinars. For additional information, please visit the CDI YouTube page. We will have a link to that page on our resources page at the end of the webinar. At this point, we will jump into our live demonstration. To get started, we are going to review our configuration page in Laserfiche Forms. This is available to administrative users, and this will be more or less a one-time setup in order to enable email approvals inside of Laserfiche self-hosted forms. For Laserfiche Cloud, there will be no additional configuration required for direct approval. After opening our Forms configuration page, under our email settings, we can select Email Approval to view the email approval configuration. The Learn More link will provide additional information on how to configure direct approval. The first option is to select how we want to approve our tasks directly. We can either click an action button in the email to complete our tasks, or we can reply to an email with the action button text to complete our tasks. In my self-hosted environment, I have this configured to be able to reply to an email. And this is going to be using Gmail for my webinar today. The most important thing to watch for is the polling interval in minutes. If our polling interval is set to 0, this feature is going to be disabled. Laserfiche Forms will not check that email inbox for approval emails. Otherwise, if we set this to a number in minutes, this is how often Laserfiche Forms is going to check that email inbox to check for approvals. So if I reply back to my email right away and my polling interval is set to, let's say, 15 minutes, it may take up to 15 minutes for that approval to go through from Forms. Next, we will look at our process diagram. But before we go to the process diagram, if we do click an action button in an email, there is no additional configuration needed to configure direct approval. Next up in our process diagram in Forms, I have our timesheet process that I imported from the Laserfiche Business Process Library. This process is going to allow our employees to submit their weekly timesheets. That timesheet is then going to be routed to a supervisor for approval. The supervisor will make their approval decision of either approved or send back for revision. If we choose send back for revision, the employee will need to revise their timesheet. When the employee submits it again, it will route back to our supervisor for approval until that timesheet is approved, at which point it will be saved to our repository and our process completes. To get started, under our Form tab, we have our Approve and Send Back for Revision buttons configured. And I'm going to enable direct approval by clicking my box. When I save this process, this is now going to be ready for direct approval through email. I'm going to start our process and complete my new timesheet. So our pay period is going to be Monday, May 1st through Sunday, May 7th. I'm going to submit time for Monday. I started at 8 o'clock a.m., 12 o'clock p.m. for 4 hours. And then I also worked on the 1st from 12:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. and that was 6 hours. I am going to submit my timesheet, and this is then going to route to my supervisor for approval. Here in my inbox, I can see that this form was submitted and the approval has come in. I can easily review my timesheet and take a look. So 8 to 12, 4 hours, 12:30 to 4:30. Nope, that's wrong, for a total of 12 hours. So I am going to reject this submission. I can reply to my email, send back for revision. Make sure you spell the word back correctly. On this next line, I can optionally provide my comments. I can say 12:30 to 4:30 is not 6 hours. I know math. It is in my name. Dearly, Michael Mathis. We will send. And if I go to my forms inbox and refresh here, I have this task assigned to me. We are waiting for the direct approval to check that email inbox and confirm our approval. While we wait, we can see here I have other tasks available in my inbox. So here I have the option to directly approve or reject my submission from the inbox. So here I can decide to approve that submission. If I select multiple submissions that are also configured for direct approval, I can bulk approve or bulk reject these tasks. One limitation, they all need to be from the same process. Here, if I select my timesheet process as well as my webinar direct approval process, my direct approval buttons are no longer available. Here we will approve these as well. And our timesheet approval from earlier this morning, we can approve. And that leaves us with our direct approval. Let's refresh. And it's now at our employee revises timesheet step. So this routed back to the employee. And here we can see in the action history, my comments from that email are included in the action history for the original submitter or for other participants in this forms process to review at a later time. As the employee, I will change this back to 4 hours. And some comments, you were correct. You can math. Resubmit our form. If we look at our inbox again, Here's the notification to the employee saying it was sent back for review. Give this just another moment for our next email. Here, our timesheet has been corrected. I can look at the resubmitted timesheet and see, yes, 4 hours is correct for a total of 8 hours. So I can reply with approve, send my email, and within a minute, this next task will be completed. It seems like a long time in a webinar. Right. If we go to, while we wait for that email approval, if we go to Laserfiche Cloud, we have our same process here. And again, under form, we can enable direct approval. We will save our changes and publish. And here I'm going to run our process in the Laserfiche Cloud. And this will show the use of the email buttons to approve forms. So we'll do a pay period of the 8th through the 14th. On the 8th, submit. And if we go to our Outlook inbox, we can see here from Laserfiche Cloud, we have our notification email with our approve or send back for revision buttons. Again, we can look at our timesheet that we have attached, review everything. It looks good, so we can approve. Our approval choice has been processed, so this will then have processed into our Laserfiche repository under Business Processes, Timesheet 5/8 through the 14th, and here is our timesheet. If we go back to our self-hosted inbox, our task has completed, and that will be filed away in our self-hosted repository. Before we move on to auto-filing and filing emails from Outlook, we do have a couple of questions regarding forms. In order to send the direct approvals via email, does the individual need a participant license? Yes, at minimum, in order to participate in processes, the users will need a participant user license. A full user license will also work. However, a public user is not able to participate in forms processes. Can the table be formatted to do the math in order to minimize errors? Yes, it can. However, that didn't make for as fun of a joke in my webinar. Can you include a box for comments on the button Approve Deny? Unfortunately not. At this time, we are not able to provide comments with the button Approval or Denial. Before we move into Outlook, I forgot to go over one of the most fun parts of our process, which is assigning to a team or teams based on variables. So here, if we select assign to team, we can select our Laserfiche Forms team that we want to assign our task to. If we select a team, we have all of our different teams configured. And here I'm going to use our timesheet team. If we select team based on variable, we can select that team name based on a value from our process. So for example, if we had the team name populated in our form from a lookup, we can then use that variable to dynamically assign our team. The same will be available for assigning to users. When we assign based on a variable, whether it's for a team or a user, we do have a couple of special values available. We can use our participant, so whoever participated in the form last. We have our previous user, so the previous user that submitted the previous form can be chosen as our recipient or our assignee. And we can also use our initiator to assign the task to whomever initiated the process. If we select team, and here we're going to use our timesheet team, I want to specify a filter for the assignment. So instead of assigning to everyone in the team, and if we look at our team options, we have multiple members. We can add in additional members as needed. And we'll specify our team manager here, which will be me. Under the filter options, we can create a new filter. Here we'll call this team managers. And using a JavaScript definition, we can then filter which members of the team that this task will get assigned to. If we click on Learn More to bring up our help documentation, we can see that we have many options for filters. So we can find members by role and specify a role name. We can find by the last task submitters and specify our step ID. Towards the bottom, there are also helper members, or helper methods rather. So our $util.union will join or union two different function results into our final results. So here, for example, if we find all of our members by role for the admin role, as well as the analyst role, we can join those together into our final results. There are many more options in here, including the $test. And reviewing this documentation will give you more information than you have ever wanted to know about using JavaScript filters inside of Laserfiche Forms. For our webinar today, we are going to find our members of the team by role. When we click inside of our parentheses here, Laserfiche Forms is going to be helpful and allow us to select either a role based on our defined roles, or we could use a variable to define that role. Here I'm going to get rid of this information and we are going to select supervisors. Whoops, let's try this again. Find members by role, supervisors. If we test, we have an error saying the task assignment filter did not return an array. This one took me longer to figure out than I care to admit. The answer is you need your $ result equals at the start of your expression, or to assign the actual result values so that the filter expression knows what results we're returning. Now, if we test, we can see it worked successfully and returned 1 team member. I can then save those changes, and we are using our team managers filter to assign based on a team. One reason I prefer using teams over users for task assignments would be if someone is out of the office. If someone is out of the office for, say, a week, and those timesheets need to get approved, or people aren't getting paid, employees aren't going to be happy about that. So if we use a team, we can add or remove members to that team, and the forms assignment will automatically update to assign or to be available to all members of that team, matching our filter. Finally, we will look into our Outlook inbox and look at how to use the Laserfiche Office plugin to automatically file documents to our Laserfiche repository. Here I'll select an approval task from earlier today, and I'm going to select Laserfiche and save to Laserfiche. I use my repository 1, which is my Laserfiche cloud account. And this will bring up my import to Laserfiche dialog. If we look under fields, this is going to pre-fill my email template along with all of my field information. I'm also able to choose my attachment options. So here, if I file my attachment as a separate document, I'm also going to apply settings to the attachments. So that's going to carry over my Laserfiche template fields to the attachment as well. And I can also link the attachment back to that original email. That way we can easily find those documents based on that attachment in our metadata pane. In order to configure those email settings, let's move this out of the way. In our Laserfiche repository, we can select our username and options. And this will open our options page for our Laserfiche repository. On the left-hand side, select New Document. And we have the Import Email section where we can choose our default template. So here I'm applying my email template as my default template. And we can populate our field information with fields that are on those emails. So I can add my CCs into my CC email addresses field. We'll save our changes here. And going forward, that CC box will be filled in automatically. So next we will click OK on our Import to Laserfiche dialog. And this is going to import those files into our Laserfiche repository. If we go to our incoming scans folder and refresh, hopefully we didn't miss them. There they are. We can see here we have our fields applied. If we look at details under Show Advanced, we have our path, and we have, is it under, I lost where my links are. Version, oh, there it is, links right in front of my face. Here we have our actual timesheet that was attached. If we click on our timesheet, that's going to bring up the timesheet entry where we can review all of our information. We go back to our incoming scans. Our documents are auto-filing. So we can go to our folder where they will auto-file to, which is going to be under client files. They will end up in the Mathis Michael folder because we are searching based on our email field. And inside of our email folder, we can see we have our 2 emails automatically filed. Let's take a look at the configuration of our email auto-filing workflow. So to start, we are going to retrieve our field values. So from our starting entry, we are going to retrieve our recipient email addresses field. We will perform a search in our repository. This is going to search for a folder where our email field equals the email address on our document. And we're going to limit our search to only look inside of our client files folder. We're only going to return the first result because we only want to move this email to one folder. So for each entry found from our search, so if we found an entry, we'll enter this loop, and then we'll move our entry to the current entry's full path and the emails folder inside of that folder. So again, back in our repository, my Mathis Michael folder has my email address in the email field. So the emails are filed into our emails folder with all of our appropriate email metadata. So that concludes the live demonstration portion of today's webinar. We have many resources available for you if there are any questions after the webinar. You can visit Laserfiche Answers, the Laserfiche Solutions Exchange, the Laserfiche Support site, or the CDI YouTube channel. You can also reach out to CDI directly at consulting, sales, or support at citiesdigital.com. Again, my name is Michael Mathis. I am the Solutions Director here at CDI. And at this point, I will stay on the webinar to address any questions that are coming in via the questions box. Okay, can you include a box for comments on the button approve or deny? Unfortunately, no, that is not available at this time. We have a question, can you use only one or the other? So only buttons or only email approvals or email replies? That is correct. That is going to be global for that forms host. We have a question, email inbox settings are located where? Does each user that needs to approve or deny need to change settings? No, those are going to be global settings. And under configuration of our email approval settings inside of Forms configuration, at the bottom, we can configure which folder we're monitoring. So in this case, I'm monitoring the inbox folder for this mail account. We can use a shared account we can use a shared mailbox for the approval. It doesn't matter much either way, I guess, especially in my configuration where I'm using a personal Gmail account rather than Exchange or Gmail Enterprise. But all email approvals will be going to this email address, and this will be used for all users that need to approve or deny. If we wanted to file those emails into a specific folder rather than the general inbox folder, we could do so by changing that folder name here. When importing emails, can they end up as PDFs instead of email files or EML files? I don't believe Laserfiche Cloud has a way to convert those to PDF. I don't believe so. Do we have any other questions at this point? If you do have questions, please post them in the questions area or feel free to raise your hand. Can approvals sent to a team only send emails to one person, but then not email the other people? When tasks are assigned to a team, all members of that team will get an email. Asterisks, if we're using a filter, only the members of the team matching that filter will get the email. Any of those users can reply back to that email to approve or deny that request. If we use the round robin task distribution, this will assign the task to a specific member of that team. So it will only be assigned to one member. And let's see here, the task is going to be assigned to the team member who has been assigned the task least recently. And for the first instance, the task will be assigned to a random member of the team. Otherwise, if we do assign to a team, that will come into a shared mailbox under team tasks. And the task can then be, through the forms inbox, assigned to whomever would like to work that task, reassigned to another member, or through direct approval, whoever approves through email first will be the winner. I don't see any additional questions coming in through the questions box. If you do have any questions, I always think of my best questions after the webinar. Please feel free to ask those in the survey or contact us via email. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. And I look forward to seeing you next month at our next consulting webinar. Thank you.